have to. All right, my name is Jesse, and I started Tributary Farm in 2018. And this will be a broad overview looking at how we scaled up our farm over the first 5 years. And I'll try to touch on a lot of different aspects. And happy to dig deeper into anything. So definitely feel free to speak up and ask a question anytime. I'm just going to try to give major details on how we run the operation and get at what I think makes us successful, mistakes we've learned from, and that sort of thing. So thank you so much for joining me, and thanks to NOFA for having us. Let's see, I'm just figuring out Zoom. All right, clicking. This is the Mid-Hudson Craft Tour last year. And I think just getting to learn from other farms is such a big part of this job. No matter whether you're in year 1 or year 30, there's always something to learn. And we're so fortunate that among the local farm community, the spirit of collaboration is so much more stronger than the competitive spirit. I've learned from NOFA conferences, other conferences, presentations, visiting other farms, craft. And this is definitely my first presentation, so I'm going to do my best. And I'll just tell you a little bit about where we are. To start, we're in the Rondout Valley in High Falls, New York. That's zone 6A. Do you guys see my clicker too? Yes, I think maybe. We're like right around here. This is our field. So we're in a floodplain on this Rondout Creek right here. The whole field is not floodplain, just portions of it. That's the creek, and it goes up there. So we have a 27-acre piece of land, 9 acres of forest, 18 acres open field. That leaves 14 acres of decent fields, and take out about 3 for infrastructure, grasslands to get around easily. Leaves about 11 acres for vegetable crops. We use organic practices to grow mixed vegetables and fruits for our CSA wholesale account and donations mainly at CSA. Last year, we grew about 6 acres of veg and 6 acres of cover crops. And we seek to have a farm that is defined by diversity, innovation, long-term thinking, and community. And we try to measure our success by our ability to turn a profit and stay in business, sustain a healthy and diverse client base and team, and build soil and ecosystem health, which is obviously a long-term thing. A little bit about myself before we get into the details. I grew up in New York City, so I did not grow up farming. My first real farming experience was on a study abroad in Kenya. And I was extremely inspired by the host family I was staying with, their example of hard work, truly knowing what it means to live off the land. My mom, in the next photo, moved to Accord, New York, pretty much where we are now in 2009, got a small piece of farmland. And so me and my sister came up and helped her start gardens there. Then I went back, I got a job in Rwanda, working for an organization called 1 Acre Fund. And I did agricultural trials for them, learned a ton from the people there, the farmers there, and my coworkers. I came back in 2016 to this area, wanting to be a bit closer to home and family. I worked at the Hudson Valley Farm Hub with John Paul and John Gill and a lot of other great people for 2 years. And during that time, I also did a mentorship with Paul and Sandy Arnold. That's the bottom left shot. And they run an incredibly inspirational farm called Pleasant Valley Farm that I learned a lot from. So that's quickly me. Hold on, I think we have a CSA member coming in. Hi, how's it going? Sorry, I'm in a presentation. What can I do for you? Perfect. You can just drop this. That's fine. Thank you. You're good. All right. So what we're going to do now is a quick photo tour of the first 5 seasons. We'll try to cover that in about 5 minutes, just the highlights, and then we'll get into else. All right. So year 0, and this is my mom's land in Accord. It's really rocky. You can see these rock walls we built just from bigger stones in the garden. This is year 0, I call it, which means I was still working at the Farm Hub in Pleasant Valley, but spending a day or 2 a week working here. My goal was to just sell, $10,000 worth of produce. And you could see I'm not very space efficient. Like, look at all that open soil. that could have been 5 rows of greens. But I'm learning, and it's very rocky, so it's not ideal for vegetables, but it's okay. There's my sister and her son and my mother in our greenhouse, and my wife Isabel doing some cultivation and hand weeding. Then year 1 begins. We get this land in 10 minutes away, much bigger piece of land, much nicer soil. This is our first garden there, and we're still using a BCS. We ordered farm equipment, but it was taking a number of months to get there. And this was my first year sort of full-time on my own, and getting help from my mom and Isabel. There we're all cultivating. There Isabel's, this is a dusk night, a lot of later nights in the early years. That's, I think, her look. That's like, we're growing all this food, but when are we going to eat the dinner right now? We did a lot of cover cropping to prepare the fields for the future, starting from the creek and working towards sort of where eventually the barn will go. This is sort of the end of year 1. We had sorry. Let me just move this. In this photo, can you
Progress.
Anyway, we grew around where the barns are. This is year 2. So if I go, how do I go back? I don't know how to go back. I'll keep going forward. I think so that last picture was the end of year 1. We moved out to those bigger fields. The barn and the greenhouse we started building in year 2. Year 2, this is a shot from year 2, moving out into the bigger fields. In year 2, our first full-time employee, we lost them before the first CSA started. My friend Jason in this photo came out to help. We hired someone else, but definitely a work in progress. We did okay with some crops. We also did not so great. You can see some weeds, quite a lot of weeds in this picture, and this is Jill hand weeding. We produced enough to put food on the table for a bunch of people. This is in our barn. You can see it's unfinished still, just framing, but we did our CSA in there. That was year 2. Year 3, this is when COVID hit. So this is a supermarket during the start of COVID, which I know transformed a lot of businesses, ours included. We started bagging all our CSA shares that year. Immediately, we had like leftover roots and stuff. We would sell those at distance pickups. And then that whole season was CSA for pre-packed shares. We had a lot of trouble with weeds that season, especially in our plastic field. That's a shot of trying to take that back. And year 4, I'd say, is when we really started to hit our stride. That's mainly thanks to a great team of people. These guys right here. But the first time we had experienced people join the farm. Also, we're matching our labor better with our crop plan for the first time, I think. And getting some new tools like cultivating tractors. But even in this season, if you look at like the cauliflower that's next to Lydia's leg there, it's kind of poor. These are the fields by the creek, and the soil fertility is very low. So we still got like a lot of refining to do on some of the details, but overall, very, very good growing season, thanks to the people. And then year 5, we're sort of building on that, and also having returned, the great team from year 4 returning for the most part, made all the difference in year 5. Grew a lot of really nice crops, kept the fields really clean, and we're able to grow some larger grow outs of certain things too. This is carrots on the left, sweet potatoes, and then the winter squash field up here. And this is our last later season lettuce plantings. We're trying to extend the seasons even outdoors as much as we can. With climate change, we can get away with planting things a little bit later. We harvested this for actually our first winter share. And you can see the tunnel infrastructure that we've been building there. The ribs of our last tunnel are up in that shot. So, what I'll try to cover here is highlights of growing, marketing, and business, which, I've been told is a three-leg stool of farming. Marrying all these together into a farm is what makes it successful or not. I think about sort of business, the crop plan, the labor plan coming together, how well are those in sync, and knowing that they weren't in sync for the first few years and they're getting much better now. The growing, how well our crops basically grow, what kind of yields we get, and how well we can market everything, and how well all those match up is sort of the basis of success or not. I'm going to get into soil health now. So this is my daughter Lucy collecting soil samples. We basically depend on cover cropping and rotation to fix nitrogen, build organic matter, reduce weed pressure, and reduce pest and disease through rotation. We till vertically, except I'll show you one mistake I think we made. And we try to do that minimally, especially during cover crop years. Obviously, we're growing vegetables, and the way, we're growing all these mixed vegetables, we till during the vegetable years. And obviously, healthy soil is the foundation of healthy crops. So this is the mistake I was talking about. We had a lot of red clover in these fields sort of 5 through 10. The first time we tried to kill red clover, I had a lot of trouble killing it because it was very big. It had made a lot of shoots, and just with the equipment we have, which is for tillage, is disc, chisel plow, and then a Perfecta harrow. It just wasn't doing the job. We had to do so many passes. So I thought, in preparation for season 4, we should get another farmer to come in and mold board. And we did that, and it was successful, obviously, in creating a good seed bed. But also, if you look at that chart of soil samples, which we definitely need to do better at taking samples from each field, but sort of a work in progress. If you look at 2021, we had some pre-mold board tests and post-mold board tests. And obviously, all that organic matter we worked so hard to build for 3 years or so was flipped, and it flipped below where we take the soil sample. So it's not like it's lost to the soil, but it is too deep for some of the plants that we're planting, and for the soil sample. That was actually, I took those because the first samples were lost in the mail during COVID. Then some of them showed up, but not all of them. But that's why we have a pre and post from that field. So I don't think, we'll be trying to sort of avoid doing this in the future. This year, for turning in red clover, we used tarps, and we tried to move them throughout the summer. So we would kill the clover with the tarp, then we would direct drill into that, a winter kill cover crop, or pretty much a winter kill cover crop, so that we're ready for next season and don't have to worry about the clover coming back. All right.
Jesse, how long did you have to cover the red clover to kill it?
During the summer, we try to cover for like 3 weeks or so, 3 to 4 weeks, and really try to do it just in June, July, August, maybe September, in the hottest parts of the year. So, if you think about it that way, that leaves, you can move it five times or so throughout the season. Definitely don't want to leave it on for winter. Foals love it and things like that. So
that's what thanks.
Yep. All right, this is the red clover field that we had for a few years. I'll just keep going. That got mowed so many times, probably 3 to 4 times a season for a few years to prepare those fields. That's Bennett in front of it when it's sort of at its height, and it's pretty clean, but there's still some weeds in there. And that's sort of our last mow of it before we wanted to start preparing those fields for This is in 2019, so we're starting to plant our strawberries and our garlic out here in that fall. So that's sort of the main thing we use for long-term rotation when we know we're going to be out of a field for a few seasons. These are summer mixes, which have sunflowers, buckwheat, sorghum Sudan, cowpeas mainly, sometimes crotalaria. And we plant those, from June onwards. We would mow those and then get our tillage going and get our crops. And this is yellow blossom sweet clover, deep taproot, really good for pollinators. Also we have bees, so love the interplay of vegetables, bees, and cover crops working together. And this is a good cover crop for planted in the fall or the end of summer, August of the year before, coming to flower in May, June of the following year, and then ready for fall crops. There's some bees on it. These are some fall mixes, usually oats and peas, oats and winter peas. That's the winter peas there, which come back, the normal peas winter kill. This is just a shot of, us harvesting vegetables amongst cover crops. These fields were all vegetables earlier in the season, and we just try to keep the drill going, keep cover crops going in, sort of like we do succession planting of vegetable crops, but succession planting of cover crops, depending on the time of year. So, every couple of weeks, we're usually driving around the farm and planting open beds in cover crops.
Hey, Jesse, we have a question in the
Yep.
chat. NS, are you finding the sorghum Sudan seeds that drop sprout in the spring? And if so, is it problematic for your operation?
We usually are mowing those before they go to seed. So no, haven't had issues. If that does happen, I'm not sure. It might, I'm sure, sometimes you don't get a handle on cover crops and then you sort of have to flush them out or what. I learned a lot about cover crops from John Paul, and he would say, if you have that, don't turn it in the first year, just let it sit on the surface, let various animals go and eat it, and then deal with it next year. A lot of times you have that and you want to till it indirectly, just to get rid of it, not see it. But really, if you leave it on the surface, a lot of that might die over winter. But I haven't experienced it. Another shot from the front to the back. That's sort of the height of the sorghum Sudan. And this is that red clover field after tarping and being planted in oats and peas. So this is sort of where we're going to be growing back again next year. Really excited to do that because these fields are way more fertile than the fields by the creek. So just naturally, the fields by the creek are really sandy. So look forward to getting back here. And all that red clover was actually a frost seeded red clover. So that was done in March with a little bit of snow on the ground, just spin spread over sorghum Sudan mixture from the previous season. Here's a table of the main cover crop mixes we use. So we've got the summer mixture, which we plant. The big thing for us is when do we want to plant them and when do we want to incorporate them, if we can plan that far ahead. So summer mixes, which that'll be in our drill from sort of June through July. Sorghum, buckwheat, sun hemp, we discussed that. And then incorporation time can vary. You can mow those because sorghum Sudan will come back with a good mowing if you have time. If not, it's okay too. The sweet clover and oats, we discussed planting that in sort of the late summer and incorporating that for the next July. So next fall crops. Red clover, again, is planted that same date, August 15th, or frost seeded in March sometime. And they can vary when you want to use those fields. And then the oats and peas winter kill is just very easy and will die over winter, be ready for early spring. Having other fields that are in winter peas, which will be ready later. So, being able to stagger when fields come out of cover crops so that your vegetables successions are also staggered. And then winter rye would be the last thing we would have around October 1st. And also just noting that grass lanes, we tried to plant grass lanes for headers, which are orchard grass, oats, and white clover. And that's really nice to not have weedy grasslands to drive over, and also have the benefit of that white clover for the bees, and not worry about mowing a lot of grass seed into fields, because the orchard grass doesn't have that when you keep it low. So we're going to move into fertilization and amendments. This is one of our soil tests from the fields near the creek. You can see the organic matter is low. You can see the other low things are sulfur and boron, and sodium too. But so, we are getting better with our fertilization now. We're supplementing with gypsum to add sulfur and calcium. And then we're also adding a boron to our fertilizer as well. So we mainly use Crayer's pelletized chicken manure in the 822 or 726, different rates by crop and field. We use ProGrow in tunnels, which has lower salts. And then we use straw on garlic and between plastic. We compost the very sandy low organic matter fields by the creek, and we use peat moss in tunnels. This chart takes the Knott's Handbook for Vegetable table about nutrient removal, and that's paired in an Excel sheet with our soil test and what our basic nutrient budget would be, so we can think about how much we want to apply for different crops. And we usually just have sort of two different rates we'll do based on the speed of the tractor. We use a spin spreader right now to spread fertilizer. The extension team is really helpful in fertilization, but also any technical ag stuff. So they've been really great. And as my extension agent says, she says the squeaky wheel gets the most grease. So you have to, call and ask for help if you want it, and they're always there to help you. All right, let's keep moving. This is Lucy in our high tunnel after spreading peat moss. We had another farmer come down with a big manure spreader to spread compost, garlic straw, and we are now on to weed management. So for us, weed management starts with a clean seed bed, Stales seed bedding technique, opening the soil, harrowing it with our Perfecta a few times, ideally before we plant. I also want to say just that the weed management, you can have all the knowledge in the world about how to manage weeds, but marrying the crop plan and the labor plan is sort of the main thing to do. We just try to keep up with them, especially at thread stage. But we also need to have time to hand weed, which we didn't have in the first few seasons, as you'll see. But our main lines of defense are tractor cultivation, this is a Williams toolbar, hoeing, and hand weeding. So all our crops are set up on, bed spacing this is a Brussels sprouts, that would be 36 inches apart. We could have a 3-row planting 18 inches apart, or we could have a 5-row planting 9 inches apart. And you sort of just choose that and then work with the knives on the cultivator to go where you want them to go. So this will look at different years. This is like, look at this, how bad this broccolini crop is. This is year 2. It's just terrible, but we were still harvesting it. Then we're getting a little bit better towards the end of year 2. Obviously, summer weeds and fall weeds are different, and the season can make a lot of difference, how wet or dry it is. Year 4, we're just a lot cleaner all around. We do hand weed though. So again, this is a Williams colt. We're netting these brassicas as well. So we're taking off netting, getting the tractor in there, getting people in there to get between plants with hose, and hopefully getting a good harvest. This field shows a 5-row crop, which would be arugula, along with 3-row, that's broccoli, broccolini, and the cabbages there. And you can see this whole field had netting on it, insect netting. So we get in there, take off the netting, cultivate probably a couple times, and then once the crops sort of grow up to the netting, we'll remove it, and they're strong enough to go on their own, except for arugula, which we try to keep it on most of the time. All right. more shots of brassicas last year. Look at these potatoes. We grew potatoes in the first couple years. So bad. I mean, just like, putting a shovel through all these weeds to get these measly potatoes. When the farm is that bad, you just got to look at the sky for a little bit, because the sky is nice and clean. These are potatoes the following year, which we did much better with weed management, but we had so much leafhopper pressure. We decided to stop growing potatoes, and now we buy them in. Plastic weed management. This is onions in year 3. It looks really pretty right now. We planted red clover and oats in between, but it got to be a total mess for us, just mainly because we didn't have time to hand weed, I think, and keep it up very well. So that was the end of the season. Yikes. And another shot of harvest that year. We decided for us, it makes sense to move onions to bare ground. We use the paper pot transplanter now. We cultivate it first with the basket weeder, the Williams, and then we do one hand weeding. Usually, here's Isabel completing that hand weeding, and this was a pretty nice crop of onions. This is back to year 3 in our sort of terrible plastic field. You can't really see crops in that photo. Then we take the walk behind mower through the aisles, start to clean it up a little bit, and then there's Bennett and Celia and we weeded through it. And for this crop, it was worth doing that. Leeks and peppers. The onions are on the right side there. It was not worth doing it for them because the onions were just coming out when we weeded. So it always depends, and we try not to make these mistakes again. Let's see. All right. Winter squash year 3. Vining crops present their own challenges on plastic. We're using biodegradable plastic, BioTello. But year 5, we're doing much better. Year 4 was also really nice. You can see on the left shot, Lucy's taking a little nap on the row cover, but we've got a huge piece of row cover out there to protect the young plants from cuke beetles early on. It does make the weeds go wild between the pathways. So you can see here, we've just rolled up that row cover, and we are gonna rototill in between them. For this is hitting it right at sort of the last moment we can. The plants are growing out into the aisles. So we've rototilled those weeds now. And we don't have other specialized plastic cultivation. We just are using the walk behind basically when we're on plastic. And we did straw them. I think with this, we didn't straw everything. There are some blocks back there. So it's really nice to straw, obviously, for organic matter and weed suppression, but I think this crop would have probably been okay without it. You can see here, Michael, Marissa, and Kathleen harvesting from a pretty clean area of winter squash. All right. Good harvest there. Tomatoes in year 4. So this is straw. And then what we do now for these sorts of crops is we straw them if we can, and then we will just, if the hand weeding gets out of control on the straw, we'll just take that mower through there and mow back weeds if we don't have time to go through and hand weeding them. This is carrots in year 5. Having time for hand weeding, I think we missed probably the window for flame weeding these, and we had to hand weed them. So having, those few hours you can get out there with a bunch of people makes a huge difference. This is parsnips year 5. Sweet potatoes this year. They're pretty good coverage, but this was sort of a decision. We were wondering, is it going to be worthwhile for us to get through this big sweet potato field, which I think was 1/3 of an acre. I don't know, half an acre, not quite half an acre. But yeah, it was worth it in the end. This is Kathleen on the G. So this is how we are marking our rows. That's what she's doing here. So the G marks everything because it also cultivates everything. Again, the Williams is the same spacing. And then we'll come behind and with our direct seeder, a Yang seeder, Earthway seeder, and just follow those lines. That's Michael cultivating spinach. That's paper potted spinach. So same thing with the paper pot. We are following those rows and trying to get them really straight so we can use the tractor. Before we had this tractor, this was year 4 we got this. We were just walking up and down, hand hoeing even between rows. So saved a lot of work. All right, insect management. The main thing we're doing is just these netting for brassicas mostly. We do some BT sprays in the fall for cabbage worms, but that's pretty much the only spray we've been using the past few years. So you can see this is a picture on the left from, I think, 2019. No, maybe even 2020, but just like all those row covers, small row covers, a lot of different rocks, different places. Now we're consolidating all those plantings together, use less rocks, bigger sheets of cover to make that job easy to uncover and cover. So the left is a bad example and the right is a better example. And also, you can see the beehives in the left shot where we want to spray minimally so we don't impact the bees, but also just don't like spraying. Has to be done sort of best time late at night when I'd like to be home. All right, we're going to jump into harvest. We do harvest days Tuesday and Friday throughout the summer season. This is an example of a harvest sheet. When is it from? Probably late summer, fall, looks like. And I think just having harvest days, balanced harvest days for us on Tuesday and Friday, because we do Wednesday pickup for CSA and Saturday, really makes a big difference, as opposed to just having a weekend market. You're keeping things fresh. You can always carry over things a few days. We also do Monday, Wednesday, Friday picks for some of things like squash, tomatoes, okra. We try to get all the details on this sheet so the team can pick it up, decide where to go. We always have a team leader, and they'll sort of lead the team through what they have to pick. So we usually do 2 harvest teams, one with the golf cart, one with the van, and then we bring on extra team members, part-time people, especially for harvest days, so that we can get things in quickly, get things into the wash pack, cool them down before it gets too hot. This is picks from year 4 harvesting, year 5, broccoli. Talk about the wash pack now. This was the first 2 years of wash pack outside my mom's barn, and see the later night, just doing it outside. So we actually transported stuff. It's 10 minutes, but we transported all the produce for the first few years. Every time we picked, we would drive over there, then we would cool it, drive it back. The second year, we needed a bigger cooler. We'd drive it to my mom's house, wash it, drive it to another farm that let us use their cooler, drive it back here for pickups or markets. So much better to keep it all in house. This was year 2 winter. We started washing in the greenhouse once we had a cooler up and running. And then we finally finished the inside of this wash pack before year 3 started. So that's been a huge difference for us, being able to have everything there, load up the coolers, pallet jack stuff around, not have to carry bin by bin. We have these 2 coolers here. This is our cold room, this is our warmer room. And we can be pretty efficient that way. We've got the bubbling tank in the middle, which is hooked up to an outlet on a switch, so we can turn that on and off. And then we have the washing machine greens dryer. We added this conveyor washer for roots and bins in year 4. With our winter CSA, we have quite a lot of pounds of roots to wash. So this made a big difference from previously we're just spraying it with a hose on a table. All right, this is Michael washing a lot of lettuce. This is the cooler. It's a terrible photo for the first 2 years, but it's basically like almost like a dog house or some tiny thing that you have to crawl into. It only has a few it could fit maybe 20 bins or something. This is spray foaming the big coolers in the barn. That's the cold room on the left, and that's the cool room that's on the right, where we keep, tomatoes and summer squash and those sorts of things in the summer. And then in the winter, we keep our sweet potatoes and winter squash. We added this container cooler, and this past year came online for November, right when we sort of outgrew those other coolers and they were packed. So this has provided us great overflow for this past winter. It's still full now, not full, but it's still in use now. Probably half full. Coolers, I mean, I can't tell you how many times we had something break on a cooler, and or just somebody bumped a fin sensor on a CoolBot or whatever it may be. Just having these alerts so that you can respond quickly. Don't learn the hard way with produce rotting. Be able to have an alert and respond to it if you have a lot of produce in there. Makes a big difference. Even just the other night, we have these heaters. These are there's a CoolBot, but there's also, if you see this thing here on the left that says 32, that's an Inkbird. So it's a thermostat that goes on and off to heat this container. And the heaters have an sort of, if they are touched ever so slightly, they'll turn off because of fire safety. So they have to be very level to run. And if you just move it a tiny bit, it might not run. So that happened a few nights ago, and just able to see it go over, reposition it. All right, we are up to winter growing. What time is it? All right, we're gonna go through this quickly. But high soil organic matter, good growing up to sort of the size you want by Thanksgiving. So those dates on the right are the dates we used this past year to get things to the right level before winter really sets in. We're row covering on and off for multiple layers when colder, and learned all this from Pleasant Valley Farm, really exceptional winter growers. They do 1 layer, 20 to 27. That's what we do now too. 2 layers from 10 to 20 and 3 layers below 10. NRCS grants are a big factor, and making good drainage around tunnels and trapping voles. Just some slides from the years of winter growing: 0, 1, 2, 3, getting a better handle on it. This is year 5 now. Also more tunnels, you can rotate crops better, have bigger plantings. So we've cut the Salin over here, and these beds, if maybe we'll be able to get over, probably not today, and take a look. But these are 3 different successions of lettuce, and we're sort of up to, these 2 beds are finished now. We're started to pick the first bit of these 3. So hopefully this will last us most of the winter, which is an 11-week share. Year 2 kale, year 5 kale, nice to get to do a whole tunnel of it. Year 4 spinach. This shows arugula and mustards and Mizuna. On the left, you can see these are 2 plantings of arugula. This is from the same day, this picture, but 2 different cat tunnels. So, doing 2 different plantings so that you have staggered growth for, in our case, our markets are every 2 weeks. So we want to sort of work through those beds over a certain amount of time. Winter growing, that's the main reason we have these tunnels, but also summer growing of tomatoes and cucumbers. Flipping tunnels really quickly in the fall so you can maximize tomatoes, and then get kale in when you need to, or get whatever it is you need in quickly, because they need to grow before all this snow comes. Row covers, tunnels, building tunnels. We built this extension on our tractor, just a pallet with a little notch in it to be able to put the bows up with the tractor, because we had an accident one year putting them up by hand. They're quite heavy, and if you lose a little bit of balance. So we're moving into marketing outlets from 2019, where we're doing CSA and markets more, and wholesale. You can see we've moved to do more CSA and a little bit of subsidized CSA shares and donations as well. But we still have some wholesale for our excess. Year one, having a farm stand, farmer's market. We did do a CSA for like 5 people in the first year, just by request. And then in year 2, you know, CSA and market were more even for us. Year 2, we're doing market style. Year 3, we're doing all bagged shares, but everyone gets to select what they want. Year 4, we're back to the table, but we also still do bag shares for those who want them, which is mainly just, you know, maybe some of it's COVID, but mostly people say it's out of just convenience, getting to pick up their bag. We're also adding breads and different things this past year, so we can sell more things and have it be more of a more exciting market for people to come to. This is the fall. We also have, you know, we'll have a giveaway section on the left. Those are squash that will rot. Get those out the door. Winter share looks something like this with the roots and the greens. We always survey our members every year. These are some of the survey responses, and the things we like to see are that the vegetables taste better. Obviously, they're local, they're grown fresh. The variety, we want to be able to provide really good variety. We want things to last longer than the grocery store, give people good value, and keep signing up. And one of the, you know, the really satisfying things about the CSA is the community. This is from an anonymous member survey. And, you know, I'm just so touched when I read these things from members, and I feel the same way that, you know, watching the farm grow is enjoyable, and watching people really enjoy the produce makes our job so much better, because we know it's being enjoyed, and we get to meet people and have a good place for people to come to every week. These are some of like the end of season parties that we do. You pick flowers, you know, you can have a long day in the summer, but all these kids come for pickup on Wednesday and can help out and just have some fun. This is our donations and food access. So we started accepting donations in 2022 to support food access, borrowed ideas heavily from Soulfire Farm, Rocksteady Farm, really inspiring farms, and we're now able to provide food for pickup to anyone who wants it, because CSA members are covering that with donations. So that's sort of, you know, we received almost $7,500 from members this year. That went $2,500 into subsidized shares, $5,000 into pantry donations, and that's really, really nice to be able to do. We do some wholesale, and that's usually, the wholesale is sort of like through 10 local accounts and 2 distributors when we have time for that. We're going to jump into the business section now. I read the Farmer's Office, Julia Shank's really great book, but also really great templates to use for business planning. Complete an initial 6-year plan that would get us effectively to where we hope to be next year. And then we'll sort of go from there. And we invested through personal savings, friends and family investment, tractor and equipment loans, retained earnings, NRCS grants, early CSA payments, and credit cards. So, you know, definitely recognize great privilege to be able to invest in the business through a personal network. This is our production growth over the first 5 years in business. So again, it's labeled year 0 to year 6. How many full-time employees we have, including me, number of part-time employees, and then sort of our produce total revenue, not included are like brought-in products, grants, other services, but definitely worth making money in those complementary ways if we can, which we started to do once sort of the CSA was up and running and we had a good clientele that wanted other things too. The acres in production is there too, and then the revenue per acre. So really trying to drive at, you know, you look at in year 20, that was 26,000-ish revenue per acre. Since then, we've really been trying to drive that up through better growing and again, marrying the labor and the crop plan, getting good crops out of, you know, most of the fields where we grow them. That 2023 number is sort of our goals for next year. And we're trying to become more profitable every year, you know, initially making $5 an hour or less for myself. My goal now is to make as much as our highest paid employee, share profits after that based on tenure, and also be able to keep reinvesting in the business to continue to grow and get the things that will help us grow efficiently. We want to continue growing it slightly so that we can increase revenue more than cost, which is what we're seeing by using our assets more efficiently, grow revenue more than costs. And if we reach where we want to be next year, that would represent a really good place for us to be. Crop planning. Crop planning, really important. Spreadsheets, really important. The two things we have in our crop plan is our greenhouse plan and our direct seeding plan. And through those two plans, basically all the to-dos for the season are laid out. So once things get planted in the greenhouse in the right way, then you just have to look at the greenhouse, look at the trays, know when stuff needs to go in. Same thing, if you follow the direct seeding plan, the things are planted, you just have to look at them and help them along their way. So basically those two tools set up all our to-dos for the season, as long as we're walking around and looking at things, which we do every week. And it's certainly a balancing act, but also using pivot tables to be able to go through a good crop plan or make a seed order really easily. Or on the left is a pivot table of like our types of trays, so we can see, do we have enough of the types of trays in these months? And using pivot tables is how we do so much analysis on various data. Time management. This book on the right, I didn't read it, but someone told me about it. It's the metaphor he uses is you throw a rock into a lake and you watch it create ripples, and then the rock sinks down to the bottom of the lake and the lake becomes flat, the ripples are gone. So that is a metaphor for, you have in your mind something to do, it should create some ripple where you put something you need to do somewhere on your to-do list, on your calendar, wherever it needs to go, and then you become calm again. So in that mindset, you do stress-free productivity, that guy says, and you can get things done. And that's sort of how we like to manage things, have really good to-do lists, have things well thought out, be able to think about the timing of doing different things, how we can batch our actions, how we can order our actions to set up our equipments, in a strategy for success, so we don't have to put implements on and off too many times. And just taking the time to think about that, having the time to think about that on a Monday for us, or whatever day it is when you walk around and you can sort of plan the week. Team management. I always think of this that mythical Shackleton quote about men wanted for hazardous journey, low wages, bitter cold, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. It shouldn't be that way, but some things are similar to that in farming. But this is in 2020, I think October 30th, when there was an early frost coming, and we had to do 3 weeks worth of work in a week. And it makes all the difference to have the right people that can lead the team to do the job, and have fun doing it. So this is our team. This is farm lunches that we sort of share rotated cooking at. Lucy and Toby, these are my kids doing some carrot harvesting. Right now we've had the privilege of having Kathleen, Marissa, and Michael here in the bottom right return. For the past 2 years, Kathleen and Marissa are coming back, and they manage so much of the farm, so much of the day-to-day, the different tasks, and so much confidence that in them, can leave the farm in their hands, can get a break, and that's made all the difference. So there's this other business book I didn't read, but it says the right people on the bus in the right seats. So I like that idea. You have the right people, you're always working with them to figure out where they want to go. In this bottom right photo, you can see we reached 1,000 hours on our tractor. Very exciting. And Uh, Yeah, what else to say about that? Just that over time, you as sort of the operation gets better, we've been able to attract better staff. And so that's been a big benefit to growing the operation, having a place where multiple people can work. And this is sort of my role at the moment. Do various things. And I just want to keep going so we can get through this and have time for more questions or a little walk around the farm. Communication style, we lean toward over communicating and direct communication. There's usually a leader on a task that will review it in detail with any new people, try to be open, honest, collaborative, and positive, try to get lots of input from the team when making a decision or struggling with the decision. And we try to do meetings every morning and afternoon to know what our plan is. Try to have a weekly managers meeting, especially next year. We did that a little ad hoc this year. Monthly check-ins with all staff, seasonal performance reviews, and a sort of seasonal team review for the full-time people. Long-term investments, our big investments are on the right, things we had to do to get this open field into the farm we have today. Build a road, a prop greenhouse, a barn, cat tunnels, high tunnels, and farm equipment. On the right is our farm equipment, the year we purchased it. So, year 0, we had the walk behind, and then we were adding the bigger tractor stuff and came in sort of the middle of 2018. Added a few more things like the mulch layer, the Williams toolbar. The G in season 4 was really a good investment for us. Paper pot transplanter also. Golf cart, being able to get around the farm. Irrigation, all of that stuff. We added a computer in year 4 that was really good, and internet. So that means I don't have to do all the office work, and we have capable people that can. And also just being able to connect to our temperature sensors, have Wi-Fi on the farm so that I can sit here and do this presentation. That's not the reason, but mainly it's, so we can do office work, which we send out 2 emails a week, don't want to have to travel back and forth to do MailChimp emails. All right. This is building the road. First day on the farm after the road came. This is, in this photo, you can sort of see all these rows. We grew it right around here the first year, and then that fall when things finished, we started building the greenhouse. You see the ribs and the barn there, pouring the foundation, putting up trusses, enclosing the top in the last photo, painting, siding. Then we sort of just had that front, the half of the barn enclosed and insulated and heated. Eventually left this second part open. We ended up starting to close this up in year 4, at least 2 sides of it, just because we got so much weather inside from all sides. This is the cost of the barn. It's very expensive, probably could have been done a little bit better, but also it's set up for continued growth, set up for an apartment if we need that, upstairs, and has a lot of valuable things inside, those big coolers and good electric and all of that sort of stuff. All right, this is our greenhouse. First greenhouse, then we built a bigger greenhouse. We have heated benches on one side and we have non-heated benches on the other, so we can turn off each table. To harden off, we either move it to the other side or just turn off the table, roll up the sides. Drilling the well. We hand transplant everything still except for what we paper pot, but it has been nice to get that paper potter. We'll probably be considering a water wheel, but still hasn't quite made sense for us. 2 investments we didn't make are like a permanent deer fence. We're just using this double strand electric fence, and we're using underground not underground irrigation. We're just having lay flat on the surface. These things are annoying. They have to get moved to manage weeds along them so they work, so you don't drive over irrigation parts. Like there's all these little flags here, and we have to move that line when we want to mow. The reason we didn't make those investments was just that we're not sure exactly, where we want the future to go on the farm. There's neighboring fields you can see both on the north and south. So I wouldn't want to put up a fence there and then say, oh, we would like to lease some land. And then that fence not make any sense. Same thing with irrigation, just not knowing, what kind of scale we want to be at. Make sure, take the time these first 6 years and feel it out, think about it before we decide on things that can really change with scale. You can see in that, that last slide, there was like the irrigation sprinklers. This decision-making imbalance in this photo, we're covering up, we didn't finish building this tunnel on time. A huge storm was coming and we wanted to protect the spinach we just planted for winter. So instead of putting the plastic on top, because we didn't have the end walls done, we just put it over the crops, over hoops. Obviously didn't want to do that, didn't want to have to like manage these rivers of water, but worthwhile for us to make sure that crop grows. So just a word on decision-making imbalance. How do you balance things where, sort of things are a toss-up? Where do you lean when you're uncertain? Of course you want to balance things, but sometimes you have to, you have to make a decision. So not wanting to waste time versus protecting a crop. We'll like to protect the crop. Quality versus quantity. We always want to grow quality and quantity, but would lean towards having something that is higher quality than just doing more. Taking more profit for the farm versus team salary. Would rather share with the team so that they'll come back and they'll see a place for themselves. CSA versus wholesale is something we always think about because the CSA is prepaid. We always want to prioritize that though, because we want our members to come back. That's more important than wholesaling a little bit more produce. Wholesale price setting versus wanting to move volume. What I sort of lean towards is like a tiered pricing structure. So we have some accounts that we email, and then we have a few backup accounts that if we don't get responses for, we'll sell to certain people at lower rates, and the distributors are included in that. How do you balance job satisfaction from doing lots of different things on a farm like this versus efficiency and specialization of a bigger farm? At this point, we lean towards enjoying doing a lot of different things. And we also lean towards large step change investments, which are incremental versus incremental and slower, but maybe more expensive in the long run because you have to do things over or repeat things. And then harvest a weedy crop or mow before it sets seeds. We prefer to harvest it. Some wisdom from Paul Arnold. He said a lot of small decisions make you successful or not. So you try to get it right. If you realize you didn't, you tilted the balance in the wrong way, learn from it and change for next time. Paul also said to any question, he says, it depends, because it usually does. But he'd say that, and then he'd get into all the different facets of why or why not something made sense. So I hope we can have some questions now. Or if not many questions, we can walk around a little bit. Walk around the farm.
There are a couple questions in the chat that I can read to you first, and then maybe if there's space. AKB asked how you handle the individual choice option you have for your CSA, i.e., how do you grow or how do you adjust your growing practices or member selection limits to have the variety that everyone wants at a given time?
Great question. It's sort of a complicated process, but also with sort of an easy answer, and just that it goes back to every year thinking about what we grew, what crops did we have limits on, what crops did members say they wanted more of in their survey, and adjusting the crop plan accordingly, but also balancing that with sort of the profit we need to make per acre. So we're not going to grow unlimited broccoli, because for us that is not as profitable as growing lettuce, or it doesn't produce as much value. So, we have to have limits on certain things, but marrying that with the plants we want to grow at the scale we want to grow them. The ordering system, starting in COVID, it was, we started an online order form. So that year, we also have a record of literally every item everyone shows all the time. And that data is great, but again, it depends on what's available too, or what was limited. So it's sort of a constant process every season to just keep refining it. Yeah, so the email goes out, people order things, and then when we're setting up our harvest list, Kathleen is taking what did we sell last week, so we're keeping good records of what goes out at CSA, what moved, what didn't, if anything runs out in a certain week, we're trying to up those numbers if we can. And then obviously doing field walks before each time we make a harvest list and make a list that's shows members what they can order, knowing what we have and the value we want to get. So the major thing we're looking at is every harvest day, what is the value we want to harvest and how do we get to that value with different things. And if something runs shy in the field, say, we don't get as much broccoli as we wanted to, we calculate, okay, we missed 40 bunches of broccoli at $3 a bunch, so we need to make up $120 of value in the most common thing, or the most like thing that we have available.
Okay, great, thank you. And then Pat Dunn asks, what was your experience dealing with rocky soil at your first farm, and were the rocks a deal breaker?
It was a lot of work for us for vegetables to move rocks out of it. We still, had a good time. We still had good crops, but obviously we spent a lot of time doing that. I would say probably, lean to there's great farms in that area of rocky soil, but more orchards or other things of less tillage nature. So depending on the scale, though, it really obviously depends on the scale. If you're going to stay small, you can sort of take out rocks and make it work. If you're going to grow larger, probably makes sense to try something else.
And then Carla said, how often do you rotate cat tunnels, and what is your tunnel turnover procedure that you referred to when mentioning winter growing?
So cat tunnels, we'll try to move them when we have to. Like we'll be moving them this spring because we had tomatoes in them last year, but we want more tomatoes in this summer. So we'll probably just move them all. Before that, we had some rotation. So we'll move them all this spring, and then we'll either keep them in the same place for winter, or if we have enough bandwidth, we might decide, let's keep the tomatoes growing longer, plant winter crops over here, and then move them over it. Sort of, again, depends on how we see that playing out when we want to plant our winter crops, what position we're in. The tunnel turnover will be taking out all the plants. We try to do tillage, like either in the cat tunnels, if we're not moving them, we're going to be broad forking them. So get everything out of there from tomatoes, say, broad fork them, rototill them. So the top is, so broad fork first, then actually we'll flush them if we haven't moved them with creek water so that we can get salts out of the growing area by using rainwater or creek water. Adding amendments, the peat moss and the fertilizer, rototilling that in and planting. In the high tunnels, once a year, we'll bring the chisel plow in and we'll chisel plow it, because after tomatoes, 1 row things per bed, we're walking a lot, we're harvesting near the plants, so we're creating compaction. So that's why we do our tillage in the fall, so that we have those big beds of greens. And then when the next crop comes around in the spring, we don't have to do that again because we haven't walked on those beds at all.
And then Joy is wondering how you scale the irrigation system from 1 to 6 acres. Is this something you have to consider at the beginning, even if all the space is not in cultivation? They are currently operating on 1 acre on drip irrigation from a city water supply, but want to learn how to scale. Yeah.
So for us, we in the first year we had a pump and a pond nearby that we pulled from. if you look at like a Rainflow catalog or Nolts, we sort of bought the smallest pump that they had. And that pump is actually strong enough to go through a lot of hose, but all those calculations, someone like at Rainflow can help you with them too. We do, drip irrigation, it's low pressure. So, usually you can scale that, but it's sort of, someone more knowledgeable than me can help you, can think about it. I can just sort of tell you what we've done, which is that pump worked for us, and having basically a sprinkler, we do 2 sprinklers at a time pretty much on our well. That's the pressure we get from our well, what it can produce. And that, waters for us 12 beds at a time, 12 100-foot beds that are 6 feet wide each. And we're able with that much to sort of be able to move around the farm in a week. That's what you want to think about, is if I had to irrigate all week, can I move this around the farm, in 5 days, in 7 days, to hit everything I'm growing? But yeah, part of our irrigation system is we were able to scale that little by little, because it depends on, we bought 1 roll of hose, then we keep adding more hose to get more lines into more fields. And our well has then enough pressure, and that small pump has enough pressure for that. But the details are also necessary to look at.
Yeah. And then the last question was about how you find your employees, and also how do you retain your employees from year to year?
So finding employees, we'll post on various job sites, ComFood jobs, Good Food Jobs, the Hudson Valley Young Farmers Listserv, Instagram, wherever. Some come through those avenues, some come through knowing people or knowing someone that's worked here, whatever it may be. Retention, I think the main thing that would help in retention is enjoyment of the job. So that's something that we can think about what we want to do in our job and how we want to structure the farm. Pay, obviously, farming is a low wage job, but trying to introduce a pay structure that that rewards good performance, that incentivizes people to return. Like this year, we sort of did like a bonus incentive that was, you'll get a higher bonus if you want to come back. So that's things that you can do beyond just.
Well,
Sorry, did someone have a question? Those are the main things I can think of.
Okay, and that is all the questions in the chat. I don't know if there's enough time for you to go to the farm quick, or what you want to do.
Yeah, I'm happy to try it out. Let me switch to my phone.
Perfect.
Let's see. All right, I practiced this. All right. Let's see here. Is it working?
Yeah, well, your video, your
Okay.
video is on your phone now.
It's still not on, is it?
It is, you're good.
Okay. Cool. I can't see it. Let me see. Are you? What do you see? Because it's not showing me.
I see your like front camera, so we're looking at your desk now and your computer.
All right. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Good. All right. So hi. This is our front. Have a quick peek out here. All right, this is the farm today. You can hear me okay?
Yep.
We can't really see because the screen share is still on.
Which one?
Okay.
Your laptop is on share screen still.
Okay.
So if you just you can unshare that and then share the screen on your phone. Let's see, let's try.
Is
There,
it, is
there
it,
you go. There you go. Yep. Yep. Can everyone see that?
all right, so you can see now.
Yes.
All right, cool. Here we are, on the farm. That's solar charger for the electric fence. See what I was talking about with like keeping this fence weed free? We have to sort of disc and then move it every so often. This is where we do like the CSA family garden, we call it. Flowers and stuff will be right here. Strawberries under row cover. Field out there. There's the barn. We'll check out the wash pack in the barn. Maybe go see a tunnel, but feel free to ask questions if there are any. We just did bin sanitization. Yesterday, Kathleen did it. So all our bins are drying. Our sweet potato cooler here. What we got in stock. And so this room was overflowing in November, but now we got some space in there. Cold cooler.
Jesse,
Yes.
Lauren asked if you're keeping the deer fence charged year round.
We usually turn it off in the winter, especially with snow. But you know, before spring, we'll want to turn it on again so that the deer get used to the shock. Or like, you know, they have a little bit of free roam of the place at the moment with it off. And we just want to make sure like that, you know, hopefully like a month ahead of when we start planting, we'll get it back up and running again. Because what it does is it baits the outer line. So ideally they get, there's a scent bait that they get shocked at. So we'll want to like bait that and get them re-acclimatized to it.
Great. And then there's also another question.
Yep.
Just raise their hand if they want to unmute and ask. I think they're on iPhone. Whoever, just raise your hand. Never mind. I guess you can continue, Jesse.
Okay. Let's see here. Do you guys want to see equipment under the barn? You can go to the tunnels. I know we're sort of out of time too. But I'm happy to hang out and walk around if people want to talk at all. What do you guys think?
Nelly, do we have to end right at 11:15 or can we go to like 11:20?
I'm not sure, but I think it's fine. I
Okay.
don't see why not. Yeah, I think this is great.
Are there any participants?
There are still 44 people here.
All right, that's fine. We'll go do some row cover and feel free to ask some questions. Or okay, the options are look in some tunnels. You know, it was really cold last night and I haven't got the covers off yet. So the options are go look at tunnels, go look at fields, go look at equipment. Does anybody have something that they want to see?
Lauren just asked what size tractor you got. I'm not sure if she's interested in seeing the equipment.
Okay, that's we've got a 7060 Kubota, which is our main tractor. So that's about 70 horsepower. And then that cultivating tractor, which is I don't know how many horsepower, but
Okay.
yeah, we sort of wanted a tractor that had that much horsepower that could run implements of that size. If it tractors, the tires, just to get a little bit skinnier tires for cultivating vegetables and going through beds. Not like super, they're like, I think
Okay.
13 inches
And
or
then
so.
Adrian just asked
wide.
what size row covers you use.
we use all different types. For the cat tunnel, these are a 14-foot cover. For the high tunnels, we use like a 34 or 39-foot cover, depending on what's available and pricing. And yeah, in the fields, we started to use one that can cover 7 beds for us in the field. So 6 times 7. Or you can see where the spinach and lettuce was in the fall. Shorter beds, 100 to 125 feet. Sometimes we grow the long ways, but if we're growing that way, you can sort of see on these are strawberries over here. We like to be able to cover it with one sheet, cover a big block with one sheet.
Okay. And then Chijuka just asked, is the ground mostly level?
Pretty much, yeah. You can see like there's some slight sloping, but it's the creek's down there, and it goes down a little and up a little, but probably to where the water is in the creek right now to where the barn is like 15 to 20 feet of elevation change over quite a long distance.
Okay. And then Jude just asked, your deer pressure is light. No one is jumping over or crawling under. What is the longest run of your deer fence and height? Your favorite vole woodchuck control?
Okay. Deer pressure is very heavy. Yeah, there's like, if there was no deer fence, there would be a herd of deer out here, quite a lot. And there have been in the past when, before we fenced, now we fence the whole perimeter of, we used to just if we were growing in this front field and this field right here, we would put the deer fence right along the edge of this field. And if we went for a month out there, they do jump in on occasion and we see tracks, but it's never enough to, in the past few years with good management of the fence, not enough to make a big dent. They might go after something specific, like they'll get a good taste for edamame or a certain type of head lettuce and go after that, but mostly not too bad. As long as we keep up with the fence. We do notice if we don't keep up with the fence, more and more will come in. So it is important to keep up with that fence. This is where that tarp photo was taken. So the tarp photo was taken. Sorry, I didn't answer the rest of those questions. What was it? It was voles, woodchucks, right? Voles.
Yeah, it was. Also, what is the charge of your fence? And then what's your favorite control for voles and woodchucks?
I'd have to look up the charge. So I'm sorry, I don't know, but I can get back to you on that. The favorite control for voles and tunnels, we make those little boxes that have like an entryway. I'll go try to look at to show you guys one. Actually, I'll just go over there now. Woodchucks, we use like a have a heart trap, especially in winter squash fields. We need to really keep that trap well baited and look at that trap, every day, move it around as the woodchucks move around. We probably caught 6 woodchuck this year. And, they do a lot of damage because they'll take one bite and then they'll be moving on to the next one. Yeah, the voles, if we see them, we try to get them with our feet. Learn that from Kim Arnold. And these little boxes that sort of, I don't think there's anything in here, but try to have these so that they might want to look where they're running, look at their tracks and put them in place. And they like the covered nature of things, so they scurry in there and get a trap.
Awesome. I think we're just about up on time.
All right.
The tour of the farm is awesome, and thank you so much for the whole overview. It was really great.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and we hope to see you around at some of the other events. Thanks so much. And thank you everyone for coming.
Sounds good.